Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Keeping Your Keys podcast. We are living in unprecedented times. From the ever rising cost of groceries and everything else, to the horrors that are currently happening in the United States, and the general geopolitical unrest in the world. We are at a crossroads moment. And if you've been through personal crossroads moments, things can get really, really difficult. And we are called upon to make choices. I founded Keeping Your Keys back in May of 2017. It had been a long time coming. I had gone through many, many things in my life that wore me down, burnt me out, put me and my sons through a very, very difficult time. We even ended up being between homes for about 6 weeks and had to stay with a friend. Things are bad. Things were tough. Things are tough right now for many of us. All those years ago, when things were bad, before we found our little cottage in the village, before there was a Keeping Your Keys, way back then, when times were so tough, it was a decision what bills to pay. Things were very difficult. Way back then, the world was different, though. Even though it was the first presidency of he who shall not be named, um, there was a sense that the righteous order would be restored and all would be well, that this was a blip. And then the pandemic came and the world changed again. And here we are today, where innocent people are being murdered. I mean, this has always been the way. But now it's thugs of the government in the United States that are doing this. This is trying and challenging. Uncertainty is omnipresent. What do we do? How do we cope? How do we carve out time for spirituality when we are busy comparing the deals in the flyers for buying groceries or choosing which bill to pay, or, especially in the United States, worrying that we'll be in the wrong place at the wrong time? There is much to be concerned about. There is much to preoccupy us. But I know what saved me all those years ago. It was a moment when, in the midst of being at the worst period of my life, I started a simple daily practice. For me, this was connecting with Hekate, doing meditation, reading, making notes, nothing complicated, just me sitting on a cushion on the floor in my bedroom with a candle. I didn't have any fancy statues. I did have a antique statue of Persephone that I bought when I was 20. I didn't have any fancy things. I just had a desire to show up in my own life. My health was a mess. My relationships were a mess. My finances were a disaster. My career was over. But all was not lost because somehow within me there was a spark that said, go inward. Yes, do all the outward things to keep this family afloat and go inward. A few minutes every day, go inward. Say her name, Hekate, however you say it. Call upon her. She will connect you with your own soul. That well of strength within us. We are the witches. We are resilient, resourceful, creative, clever. They have always tried to break us, and they never have succeeded because here we are today with Hecate, standing in her crossroads, choosing to go inward to the soul, which of course is so much greater than the inward journey, turning to her, Hecate the soul guide, Hecate Psychopomp. This aspect of Hecate is more relevant now than ever. What will see us through is, yes, all of those things we need to do to be safe, practical, smart. Those things work when they are driven what we know to be real and true and beautiful, when we know our values and what our soul's purpose is in this life. It's time to dig deep and follow her torches. Christen and I recorded this episode recently. We've done many on Hecate as Psychopomp, the Soul Guide. This is the newest one. We do cover on some different topics that we haven't discussed before. I hope you'll find it interesting. If you're able to join Covina, we're starting a new series once a month, Healing Circles. We'll be discussing coping during these times in which we live, have healing circles, and so on. If you wish to join Covina, but financially you're not able to, send Kristen an email at kristen@covinainstitute.com, and I will put the link in the show notes so you can have that as well. For everyone who is on Substack, you'll also find the link to join the Zooms for these healing circles in the article that's associated with this episode. Kristen and I are committed to providing Covina as a safe harbor, a coven of like-minded witches, a refuge that you can join from the comfort and hopefully safety of your own home. We'll get through this together. Here's the episode. We are here to talk about Hecate Psychopomp. We've done this many times before. We wanted to do like a fresh episode because every year we do Psychopomp as a month in Covina. that ends with the Aquarius new moon. We do the soul retrieval ritual. If you are following along in your copy of Entering Hecate's Cave, this is the eponymous Psychopomp chapter in the book. But every year when we come to Psychopomp, I have new insights. Now, sometimes these insights are based on just our ongoing research, but also it's about like weaving the history and personal experience and what I am so privileged to witness in Covina. Like it's weaving all of that together. And I feel like every year I just go deeper into understanding this very central role of Hecate as Psychopomp, the soul guide.
Right. Well, I was gonna say this is the nature of Psychopomp, the soul guide, bringing things to light, right?
Right. And
It's
there's
leading you deeper.
deeper,
Yeah.
deeper and deeper into myself,
Hmm.
into like the meaning of life. I know that sounds kind of grandiose, but it's true.
Yeah. Into the mystery.
Into the mysteries, and also into like historically what this very central role of Hecate like meant, like what the context of it was historically.
Mhm.
Okay, shall we light our candles and welcome in Hecate Psychopomp? So we've got the Psychopomp sigil. You can see this is the dark moon with just the emerging waxing crescent showing. The flames, of course, the three flames for Hecate, the crossroads, and then that downward arrow to represent that journey into the mysteries, into ourselves, into the rootedness, like the reality of Hecate and our own souls. Like this is a really deep, profound aspect
Mhm.
that calls us into this work.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe we should start at the start. I was looking at some of the Psychopomp recordings we've done over the years,
Yeah.
and one thing I thought I want to start with is I want to talk about just defining the word psychopomp because I think that's interesting. And we've talked about it before, but I thought we could do some a bit more about this. So psychopomp, it is an ancient Greek word and it translates into English as soul guide.
Mhm.
And if I want to spend some time, I'm an etymology geek, so I want to talk about the like break down this word and what it actually means as opposed to, like how it's translated into English. So psyche or psych or in this case psycho, this is such a fascinating word for me. Okay, like I have a PhD in psychology. But like even when I say like psychopomp, because the word psycho is meant to mean someone out of control, like someone who was not stable. Like we say, oh, so and so's a psycho.
Right.
And that's like, but if we are actually looking at the meaning of the word, we're saying so and so is a soul, right?
I'm following.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think the word psyche, the word psycho is so interesting because here in the 21st century, like it's come to mean different things. So I want to talk about that for a minute. You with me?
Okay.
Is this okay? Okay.
Yeah.
So psyche means soul. Of course, there is the myth of Psyche and Eros. And you can think of like Psyche was the embodiment of soul and Eros desire. So Psyche and Eros, soul and desire coming together. Soul, which is like the unborn, eternal aspect, the self with a capital S, like that's something that is both greater than us and holds us within it, but yet somehow we as mortals hold it within us as well. So that is soul, kind of loosely in how the Greeks might have understood it. There's different approaches to it, of course, but just to put it in a kind of a nutshell, so soul is something greater than us. But we also have a soul. So the soul, the psyche, needs to be supported as it transitions from the physical embodied version of soul connected to a mortal and then to the other side.
Mhm.
So that's the afterlife, the underworld for the Greeks. So soul is this part of us that's greater than us, connected to us, but also it lives on after we die and it needs help getting to the other side. So pomp means guide, walk, and it's, someone who's there, like to help. And we still, although the word psyche is much more complicated in modern sense, we still use pomp here and there because we'll say what? Pomp and
Yeah.
circumstance, right? Pomp and ceremony. So we still, like, there's vestiges of using the word pomp that still exists today. But the whole thing with psyche, I think, is so fascinating because psychology, um, as a discipline, when it was founded, we're only going back like 150 years. The ideas of psychology have been around since like Socrates and Plato and even before them. But psychology as a discipline has a very short history. Psychology has a long past but a short history. That's what they tell you in history of psychology courses.
Mhm.
Um, So when psychology as a discipline was founded, it was founded by people like William James, and then there was Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, and their understanding of psychology was soul work. It was about this deeper, greater part of ourselves, um, the unconscious, the self with a capital S. This is what they were interested in. So hence the name of the discipline. But then there was a plot twist because then different schools arose that were very much against kind of like this deeper self with a capital S soul business. They wanted something pragmatic, something that could be easily fixed and easily studied, to be frank. And so then there was the rise of like behaviorism, and it gave us ideas like positive reinforcement. And then there was the rise of like cognitive science and therapy, which was we're all about our thoughts. If you can change our thoughts, you change people's lives. So there's like behaviorism, it's all about rewards and punishments. And then there's the whole cognitive aspect. We're just bodies that don't really matter. We're all about our thoughts. So then you get the cognitive behavioral movement that really becomes dominant in psychology. And soul kind of gets booted out of psychology for a while. It's still there, but in terms of the mainstream, there's all this kind of cognitive behavioralism going on. And so much like the workplace has been influenced by principles of cognitive behavioral science. Like there's so many things about our modern lives that are impacted by this cognitive behavioral areas of psychology as a discipline. Like we don't even know, like positive reinforcement. Like we all just accept that positive reinforcement is good now, that if you reward someone for doing something, then they will feel good about themselves and they'll be more likely to do it again. Like this didn't always exist. Like workers used to get punished, children used to get punished. And so the idea was if you punish someone when they do something bad, then they'll stop doing the bad things. But we live in a world today where the opposite It's true. We emphasize positive reinforcement. You do something good, you get rewarded, you do good things. So it's like the world has really shifted because of the discipline of psychology over the last like 100 years basically.
Mhm.
But a lot of that has nothing to do with deep soul work. So it's really been interesting to me to kind of see like how the discipline I was trained in, like how it kind of navigated away from the soul into something that was easier to work with.
Right.
But then the issue becomes, yes, we need cognitive strategies to cope with life. Yes, we do. We need that. Um, yes, behavioral strategies work 100%. If you have children or if you have pets and you use behavioral strategies, they can help. But that's not the deep soul work. That's not the psychopomp. That's not what William James and Carl Jung were talking about.
We're so much more than
We are so much more than these like superficial layers, right? So it's when we talk about psychology, it's such a broad field. It's just exploded. But at the same time, it's like we need to put the soul back into psychology.
yeah.
It's not cognitive behavioral things are great, but they're not enough. Um, because you'll always be left, even if you learn great strategies for coping with life, if you learn good communication skills for speaking with your partner, or good skills for in the workplace, that's all great. But you can still have that yearning, that emptiness, that something inside of you that is calling you to something deeper. And that is the call of Psychopomp, I think. Okay, babe, what do you think about all this?
What do I think about that? You're the psychologist. Very well said. Yeah, I think Psychopomp is, you know, in mystical terms, like a soul guide, like you were saying, between the living and the departed or spirits around us, but also like a call back to self, like that deeper part of ourselves.
Right, because strictly speaking, historically, Psychopomp was viewed as a being. It could be an expression of the divine, like Hecate or Hermes,
Mhm.
that had this special ability to guide souls from the land of the living to the afterlife
Right.
and vice versa. And this was a really central role of Hecate for the Greeks in particular.
Mhm.
I think in her like ancient Carian, where she was more of a great mother figure, that would have been part of who she was. This is
Well,
something we haven't talked about this, but
sorry, even though, like, if you go back to her most ancient origins, say, like, Kari and Hecate, Anatolian Hecate, this great mother goddess, like, she holds a threshold between life and death. Like,
mhm,
she is liminal. Like, she is psychopomp. Like, she's still psychopomp.
right, because she's the gatekeeper,
Yeah.
right? Like she stands at the crossroads between all realms, all moments, all phases of life.
Mhm.
Like she is at that crossroads.
Mhm.
Something I was thinking about earlier today, and we didn't have a chance to talk about it, was why over time, over the centuries in ancient Greece, did this aspect of Hecate become so emphasized? So if we look at kind of like the Greek profile of Hecate, which would be, they adopted her from Turkey. They syncretized her with the Thessalian goddess Enodia in some parts of ancient Greece. So she was associated with roads, crossroads, thresholds, and then this ability to guide souls between realms. So she could take souls, she could see souls to the gates of the underworld, for example.
Mhm.
Um, which is chthonic, which is another word, we can talk a lot about what it means. Chthonic, which means like of the earth. Like she's not Uranic, well, she is in some instances, but if she's chthonic in that, like she can go down to the down below, but she's also like of the earth. It doesn't mean she's like Persephone, queen of the underworld, and that's where she lives. It means she has the ability to go down there
Mhm.
and that she has the special talent of helping souls transition,
Mhm.
which is not to say that she is like an underworld goddess per se, because her role was to help you go to the underworld. And the underworld to the ancient Greeks was where everybody went when they died for the most part. You could get kind of like the deluxe star treatment and end up in good places, or if you were a nasty person, you could end up in bad places within it. But they didn't have like the Christian idea of heaven. Everyone went to the underworld.
Right.
The heavens, the up above was for like the Olympic gods, the arena gods, like those, but humans always went down below. And so this is who she is to the Greeks. Like her central role, she is someone who can help you get where you need to go.
Right.
Where it's whether it's like physical journeys or if she's at the boundary, the threshold, the crossroads, she's going to meet you there and she can help you transition to the other side. She is about this momentum of like you're going somewhere and you need help to get where you're going.
Mm.
And I think this also links to her role as Aletheia, the divine midwife,
Yeah.
because it's just the same thing, but in reverse. It's like bringing new souls into the world. But of course, like, I mean, reincarnation in the ancient Greeks, they weren't huge on it, but there's that element like a soul is coming into the world and that soul is coming from the other side.
Mhm.
And so that she's also associated with that. So Hecate is always about, she might be at the crossroads, but what she does at all these crossroads is she helps you get to the other side,
Right.
right? Whatever it is that you need to do, she's going to be the one to help you get where you need to go.
Right. Well, I keep thinking about the co in Psychopomp. Psyche.
Right.
Yes, co. I don't know why that's just prominent for me. That because that is like in communion, like the in between, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
co pump. And to what about like the Chaldean oracles? Like she was also, she could also aid in ascension as well and like guiding us to higher realms, not just the underworld.
Right. I mean, the Chaldean oracles, it comes in a little later historically
Yeah.
than like the classical Greece era and how during that time she was seen. But you're right, there's the Chaldean oracles where she is actually the soul of the world.
Mhm.
And it's her force that can guide us to ascension, like can help us become better so our souls move up um, through the different levels until we kind of reach this higher understanding.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect of it too. And you know what I was thinking, why did Hecate get these roles for the Greeks? Like what did they know about Hecate in terms of like what would the context be? And I keep thinking like the Greeks knew she was foreign to them,
Hmm.
right? And where like when you are going someplace, like it's always a foreign territory. Do you know what I'm saying? So like if you are here now and we need to go over there, like she was the over there as well. Like she came from away. I mean, that
Right.
may be what her name means, right?
Comes from afar.
Comes from afar.
Hmm.
Um, and so it makes sense. Like, who is going to be the one who can guide you into the mysteries, into the unknown, better than the one who is from afar?
Right.
And the Greeks did this with other figures too, like with Medea in particular. I'm thinking of Medea because if like foreign women were in Greek plays and mythology were often associated with witchcraft too.
Mhm.
Um, so there's something about, oh, like these foreign women are powerful. Like they can talk to spirits. They are psychopomps. They can guide souls to the other side. Or in the case, well, Circe's kind of a special case because she was born of Helios, so she was like a demigoddess. But like that, they have these. They're foreigners, but they're mysterious and exotic, and they have these powers of magic,
Right.
of being able to go like with Circe, helping Odysseus like communicate with spirits and so on. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's something about this like social political context of how the Greeks viewed the part of the world that Hecate and also Medea, by the way, came from as being associated with like spirits and souls, the afterlife and magic.
Mhm.
And so it makes sense that all of this kind of constellated around Hecate.
It does.
Yeah. All right. What are your thoughts?
I was just thinking about Hecate's horde. We wanna
Yeah, let's dive in. What are your thoughts on Hecate's horde?
I mean, that's she was a soul guide for Hecate's horde also, right? Like, I mean, if you wanna get into, I don't know, just I'm just trying to think how to paraphrase this, and it's just she just abides in the liminal, right?
What?
Uh,
Maybe you should tell them what Hecate's horde was.
Hecate's horde. Uh, okay. So we know that the ancient Greeks saw Hecate as the goddess of the crossroads, and she sort of, um, Psychopomp, as we said, Hecate's horde often was a group of spirits,
Hmm.
people that had passed on, that were often like the marginalized or people who had died and w- what we what they would call a dishonorable death, right? Like
Right.
unwed mothers or just it was just like collected spirits that she guarded over. Um yeah, what would you add to that?
Well, I think Hecate's horde, it's also like these are spirits that had no place to go.
Yeah, the restless dead.
So, like Hecate could help, I guess, the worthy get where they needed to go.
Yeah,
But if you were an outcast of society and you didn't have basically the right tokens to get into the underworld, or at least this is what people thought, um, then she would just collect you.
right. She just took you under her wing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then a lot of these spirits were seen as restless dead or sometimes more nefarious, um, because they were unsettled souls.
Right.
They couldn't transition. So there was no peace for them in the way of like the way that the ancient Greeks viewed this. If you couldn't get to the underworld, if you couldn't, go across with the ferryman and get to the other side and have a good death, then your soul would kind of wander the earth. If you couldn't get where you needed to go.
Mm.
And they believed that people had to have certain, I guess, behaviors, or they had to have adhered to certain norms,
Right. Or meet certain rites of passage.
or meet certain rites of passage, because like women who died in childbirth who were unmarried, or um, in situations like that. So anyone who was kind of a societal outcast,
Yeah.
um, they would not find rest in the afterlife, and they were part of Hecate's horde. And we've talked a lot about Hecate's supper in other episodes,
Yeah.
and part of the purpose of Hecate's supper was to not only propitiate Hecate, but also, to keep her horde of restless dead away from the person making the offering of the supper, right? Because the idea was that these spirits could unsettle unsettle people. They could, okay. So there's a lot to take in. How do we make this about like our own personal work, like our own connection with Hecate? I think for me, this idea that Hecate always wants to guide us back to our own soul, like to our own purpose, our own truth. And for me, that really maps onto this kind of depth psychology work where there's this return to like the deeper aspects of like who we are, beyond that kind of cognitive behavioral surface stuff. Like there's the world of dreams and the unconscious, and that Hecate, this is Hecate's country. Like this deeper work within ourselves, like the symbolism of dreams and so on. And I think some of us can actually be called to soul guide others. And in Hecate's cauldron, I discuss this a little bit, and there's also a ritual of Hecate for the dead, for those who feel called to this type of work. But I think soul guiding for others is such an interesting topic.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Have you had any experiences like that?
Um, yes, absolutely have. I have, and I don't really know. I think that it is a calling. It's a calling, and it's not a calling to be answered lightly. Uh, for me, it requires things like healthy boundaries and a reverence. Uh, yeah, I've had a couple of experience with people who have passed on that I felt were like lost and lingering. And I think
Mhm.
that that's something those of us who are sensitive to those energies definitely have probably felt. Have you ever been like in an old town and like past a cemetery, or you know what I mean? Like what
Mhm.
so many of us have had experiences with restless spirits. Um, yeah, I think that that's something that I've just fallen naturally into. Um, yeah. And as far as you know, being our own psychopath.
Right, so I guess there's 2 levels of psychopomp
Yeah.
that we're talking about, right? One is the kind of like the personal, working on yourself, healing, using that symbolically, like the return to our own soul. So we can, soul guide ourselves, but also support others as they do this kind of like work within themselves, like soul retrieval and past lives. You could even put in this kind of container. We're doing this deeper work, even like understanding dreams. That's all very in that level of psychopompery.
Right.
But then there is the part that is of the mystery, I would say.
Yeah.
It can be very shamanic, to use the modern sense of the word, that we can be called to, like you said, like if there's restless spirits,
Mhm.
to do some work in helping them cross over to the other side, whatever that may be for them.
Mhm.
And also like when people pass, helping them to transition to the other side, calmly and smoothly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think some of us are called to that work.
Yeah.
So there's two ways that I use Psychopomp.
Well,
One is in terms of like the work that we're doing
yeah.
on our own living selves and to help other living beings connect with their own soul. And then there is the deeper level of helping actual souls transmigrate and so on to the other side and perhaps back again.
Yeah. Yeah. I like this idea of being like a psychopomp in action, just like I don't know, this is just me like personally how I connect to psychopomp. I think that being our truest, most authentic selves are shining that beacon, so to speak, like our own sort of soul fire radiates outwards, and thus we become psychopomp. We become psychopomp for ourselves and for those around us. And just, I kind of feel like standing in that authenticity just kind of redirects the energetic flow. That's like that is another way to embody psychopomp. Do you know? You
Right.
see
In
what I'm
terms of
saying?
like the work with the living,
Yeah,
the work with the embodied,
yeah,
right? As opposed to the work with pure spirit or pure
yeah.
soul. That the more authentic of a life that we live, then not only are we more aligned with our own soul, like soul codes and all that other
Hmm.
business, but also like it can inspire others
Yeah,
to do the same.
yeah. Think about like teachers. Teachers are a good example
How so?
of like psychopomp in action, like, inspiring people, like inspiring knowledge, inspiring growth, you know what I'm saying?
I think I would agree, like in certain circumstances, like if it's a teacher
A good
that
teacher.
as like as a teacher that's like helping you get back to your own soul,
Yeah,
like not a teacher that's helping you learn the alphabet,
right.
right? Like it's, maybe a spiritual teacher or a mentor or someone who is pulling you like into something
Mhm.
deeper and greater, like into the mystery. They can certainly be a psychopomp in terms of like doing soul work on the living. And then I guess we would call it like mediumship today.
Yeah.
The psychopomp with spirits and people who can communicate with either the restless dead who are kind of trapped, not really part of this world, but stuck in this world and they can't transition to the other side or reincarnate. They're kind of stuck. There's those spirits that we can communicate with. But then there's also through mediumship, like we can communicate through spirits, who are just firmly on the other side, like
Yeah.
our parents, if our parents have passed, loved ones, our past lives.
Yeah.
Like, so there's that, and that would be more like mediumship
Yeah.
in a modern sense, but that's psychopompery.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course there's like necromancy, like speaking and working with the dead, which is another term that gets thrown around,
Right.
right? And being able to commune with the dead. I tend to call all of that like mediumship,
Yeah.
if you can speak with those on the other side. And if you more of a psychopomp is something, I think the modern word is more like a death doula, like someone who can help someone transition
Right.
to the afterlife. So there's really like we're using psychopomp in three really distinct ways. One is kind of embodied living being soul work, and two would be the spiritual experience of Hecate or another being that can help you transition to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third way would be to serve as a medium where we can communicate with spirits on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see there's a lot of layers to this. And like Kristen mentioned, the Chaldean oracles earlier, and that's very much that kind of embodied psychopomp. I'm alive, help me to elevate my soul. And then there is the psychopomp who is the soul guide helping you to go to the other side. And then there is the one who is with spirits, like the rest, the horde, or she's associated with all kinds of spirits, right? So there's psychopomp is really multidimensional.
Yeah.
Um, and also linked, to her role as a road goddess because it's about the journey. It's about someone who can connect us. She is the conduit that can connect us to the other side.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much to this epithet. It's a really fascinating one, and like I said, there's these three kind of overlapping but distinct qualities and ways that we might experience her. Like she might connect us to an ancestor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she might connect us to a past life, and she might also help us retrieve pieces of ourselves that have been fragmented due to trauma and so on in this life. but we may have also been marked that we ourselves have mediumship skills so that we are almost like her envoys and that we can communicate with spirits and work with spirits and help spirits cross over and so on. So it's a really, really fascinating aspect of Hecate with such a rich history.
Yeah.
The Greeks really saw this as a central aspect of Hecate, this ability. And it's a very, and I would say this kind of as we wrap up, to like sometimes people are really drawn to mediumship, like they want to be able to communicate with the other side and talk to spirits and convey messages like from departed loved ones to the living and so on. And that can be such a beautiful calling. And also it's a very demanding
Yeah.
and it requires a lot of skills and time to develop. It's not something to be taken lightly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if a person is watching this and they feel like, yeah, I've always naturally kind of been able to communicate with the other side. Um, I always say like work on yourself.
Yeah.
Get good boundaries like you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Take good care of yourself and know that you don't always have to help.
Right.
You can say no,
Just because someone's knocking on your door doesn't mean that you have to answer.
right? You're not Hecate.
Right.
You're a human being, and you need to be able to live your life and developing that skill through like regular practice, meditation, the kind of soul work in that sense of the definition of psychopomp,
Yeah.
right? Getting your boundaries up, and that will ultimately help you to be able to navigate being a medium better.
Hmm.
So you're not overwhelmed by it. Like, as you mentioned, like, if you're empathic, it can be really overwhelming. And I think the key thing here is to appeal to Hecate Psychopomp to guide you back into a place, where you are in your own power
Right.
and that you are functioning through wisdom
Right.
and not getting overwhelmed by spirits and so on. I think like when I was younger, this used to happen to me. And you know me, remember we had some weird shit happen here last week with
We
the stove turning on
yeah, we'll do that.
and TJ was saying something about like, oh, I went to do something last night and I came in the kitchen and the stove was full blown on and then and you heard a man say something
Hello.
and I was just like, what did I just like I had no time for fancy rituals. So I think I just literally yelled, like, get the fuck out of this house. We will have no spirits in this house. But I meant it. I didn't say it nice like that. And I like raised my arms and then it all stopped. Because I will not tolerate spirits in the house. Like, no,
We keep it pretty tight. It's the yeah. I think yeah, boundaries, energetic hygiene, as I say,
right?
so important. Yeah, and there's something there I want to say too about kind of like if you were just imagine if there were people like you wouldn't guide someone into the darkness like without knowing the terrain or like without
Right.
knowing where you're going. That's why the inner work is so important to do. It like you need to do the deeper work to do that. The other.
Well, also, like, just when we're going about our business, like, if we see someone on the street, like, we don't go up to them
Yeah.
and say, "Can I help you with," like, if we're just going about our business, like, we're not just randomly helping
Right.
people. And if someone comes up to us and asks us for something, we hopefully we have good boundaries and we say no if we're not capable of helping them, right? Like, we're not. So I think a lot of this Psychopomp, one of her big things she can teach us in addition to our own soul work, is just like boundaries are so important. So important. And, figuring out what is important, like what values you have
Hmm.
and what feels right to you, like that is where you start. If you want to do mediumship work, you don't run in. I mean, I did this stupid shit back in the day. You don't just like run into a house and do a house clearing or help someone communicate to a long lost loved one. Like, I think back, like, 30 years ago, I was like, "What did you think you were doing, Cindy?" Like, I thought I was well-informed
Yeah.
and well-trained, but now looking back, I say, like, it has to be about boundaries because these things will have a real impact on you.
It really will.
If you don't have those energetic shields up,
Mm.
when and I had a situation once where, the like, my partner in this type of work, we had been doing some work with someone else, and, like, the restless spirit that she had attached, this third woman had attached to her, like, it became attached to me, and then my partner, she had to get this energy off of me because I didn't have good enough boundaries because I was still learning how to do this,
Yeah.
and then over time, I decided, like, that as a line of work was not something I wanted to pursue, and I don't rarely I do it now just because it does take a toll. Like, when you are communing with people who are on the other side and helping them either transition
Yeah.
or because they're causing a disturbance in a house, or you want someone wants to speak to someone on the other side. There is a lot, like, death is tragic always.
Yeah.
And restless spirits have always had a difficult life. And so there's a lot you are taking in, and then it can stick to you. Like, if you don't know how to say, I can absorb this information now, and then release it when the work is done.
Right.
And I think this is the thing, that when I used to do this work when I first got started, that was the biggest challenge. It's not connecting to the spirit, it's not getting the messages. It's like this will burn you out. So you need to develop that skill where you are not absorbing all of this and having it become part of who you are because it will stick to you.
It will.
Like it's like you need to know what's going on to fix the situation, to pass the message along, but then you just need to like it needs to be gone.
Right.
And I think this is when you look at Hecate's role, this is what she's doing, right? Like she's not taking these things on. She's like helping us. She is the connector.
Yeah.
And if you're doing mediumship work, that's what you need to be is like you need to be a little bit like Hecate and just be the connecting force
Yeah.
that does the work
Yeah.
and not owning it, like not taking it in. I think that's really challenging.
Yeah, I just want to say something that's helped me, and I literally envision this in my mind as like hours of operation. Like
Yep.
when I'm ready, I imagine myself going into the office and like turning on the open sign. And when you're
Yep.
done, I flip that switch and the door's closed and locked. And, like you're just gonna, done.
Done. Rules is rules,
Right?
right?
You can wait till you open again.
If we open again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think getting started, if someone is sensing like a restless spirit around them, it is literally just to say, you need to move over to the other side. Like, go.
Yeah.
You can set up some kind of beacon or something if you want to help guide them, a candle, but that's more about like focusing energy
Yeah.
because what they need is for us to take our energy, our talent, and push like, it's almost like we're creating that road for them so they can or start shining a torch for them so they can see where they need to go.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, when it's over, it's like, "Okay, the office is closed." We drive back to the office, the work is done, they're passed over,
Right.
we've parlayed that message,
Right.
it's done for the day,
Right.
right?
And then you cleanse.
And you
Go
cleanse,
home, take a shower.
and we're back in Hecate's cave, and,
Yeah.
until next time,
Yeah.
right? It's such a fascinating topic. We didn't even really get much into dreams because I really think that's so
That's it.
associated with
Yeah.
Psychopomp as
Psychopomp
well.
too. Yeah.
All right. So explore your dreams,
Yeah.
work on your boundaries.
Yeah. And let's talk about it. leave
Get
leave a comment.
Yeah, leave us some comments
Hop
and
in the chat.
talk about how you're connecting with Hecate as Psychopomp.